Sevyn Banks has committed to LSU. Sevyn Banks, a defensive back from Ohio State, was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, has played there for 4 years, was an all-conference selection in the shortened 2020 season, where he also had the game-sealing interception in the national semifinal against Trevor Lawrence and Clemson. LSU, we knew, was going to go deeper into the transfer portal. They still have a couple of spots left to fill over the next 2 weeks, but the DB room at one point was pretty much barren, and now you've loaded up with a bunch of guys who have played a lot of football, and Sevyn Banks is one of them.
Yeah, he definitely is, and he's played in a lot of big-time football games in the Big Ten and a lot of, college football playoff games and getting that experience. So high leverage, high situation, football games and being able to perform at that level. And I think that was one of the bigger question marks when you lose, Eli Ricks, and you lose, some of the guys, Dwight McGlothern, and some of the other guys you lost in the secondary, obviously Cordell Flott. I thought those were a huge position of need that Coach Kelly would have to go out and figure out either in recruiting or in obviously the transfer portal. And I think he's done a phenomenal job of that. I think all these guys can really come in early on and play, and the moment's not going to be too big. Or that doesn't mean that's going to mean they're going to be All-Americans and first-team All-SEC guys. I don't know, but I think it's definitely guys you can go out there and compete, and that they have experience doing so, and I think that's a great start.
So when you look at Banks' career as a freshman in the 2018 season, played in 5 games, was basically a special teams guy. In 2019, he played in 14 games for that team that was the 2 seed in the college football playoff that LSU ended up winning. In that year he started 1 game, made 10 tackles solo on the year, had a tackle and a half for loss, broke up 4 passes, had an interception. The 2020 COVID year was his most productive season. He started all 8 games that Ohio State played, made 19 solo tackles. He led the team in pass defense at 10, had an interception. He also blocked a couple of kicks in his time there. This is a guy who was a really, really good athlete. Last year he battled injuries, only played in 9 games, started 6 of them. The statistics kind of ticked down a little bit, and he's been dealing with injuries really for the better part of a year. So he's been a really, really productive player at Ohio State, was a highly thought of recruit, is a talented guy. I think the biggest question here is going to be the medical and just how he feels.
Yeah, you got to stay healthy, and I think that's a kind of thing we just kind of saw with Derek Stingley throughout his LSU career. Really, really productive first year, and then the injury bug kind of just got attached and really couldn't get it off. So I think for Sevyn, obviously coming to the SEC, really wanting to be able to prove itself and give itself an opportunity to go to the next level and be a cornerback selected high. That's going to be number 1 on the priority list. He's going to have to come down here and find a way to stay healthy. I think he can challenge for a starting spot on the outside. I don't think that's been solidified yet. I don't think anyone's kind of done that so far, especially with Converse not being available every day. So I think Sevyn's going to be in a great position that if he can stay healthy and really play and kind of get back to that production that we've kind of seen him have, I think it's going to be a great situation for him at LSU.
Shout out to The Athletic. Brody Miller has a piece up at The Athletic. If you don't subscribe to it, it's dirt cheap, and it's really good. And they can do things like this very quickly. They put up a story, what kind of player is LSU getting in Sevyn Banks? And, of course, Brody covers LSU. Bill Landis covers Ohio State for The Athletic. They put a collaboration together. And I'll just read you Bill Landis' quote here from The Athletic. Said, one that was good enough, what kind of player is LSU getting in Sevyn Banks? Said, one that was good enough to start 15 games at corner for Ohio State and logged nearly 1,000 snaps over 4 years. Injuries kept Banks from taking a step forward in his senior year with the Buckeyes. He had a knee injury in the previous spring that lingered into fall and then slowed him at the start of the 2021 season. Then he missed the last few games with a different injury. When he was healthy, Banks was a solid cover corner with good size at 6'1", 200 pounds, and an athletic profile that will be desirable for NFL so long as injury concerns don't linger. He also had an ACL tear in high school. That certainly was a long way in the rearview mirror. So it's a good ad from my estimation. You've got to continue to add in the secondary there. Jarek Bernard-Converse, the guy you were talking about who's been injured, was an all-conference player at Oklahoma State last year. We understand they brought in the 2 guys from Arkansas, and you go get Mekhi Gardner from ULL, and then you supplement that with Sage Ryan and Jay Ward and Major Burns, and you feel like their numbers are pretty good at secondary. Do I think it's the greatest secondary LSU has ever fielded? I don't. Do I think they have enough numbers and enough talent to be competitive? I do, and that certainly was not the case when they played Kansas State.
No, not at all. I think, I don't think any LSU fan wants to, go through that experience again. It kind of got to a laughing point and like a joke of a game that it was. And I don't think you want to have your program in that situation. I think, doing the work that Coach Kelly's done is he's doing everything in his power to make sure that doesn't happen. And getting guys who have, experience, obviously guys in the SEC, guys in the Big Ten, guys who kind of played everywhere. So I think it's not going to be too big of a shock or too, big of a moment for any of these guys. And I think they're going to go out there and compete. And I think that's something that, I think this program desperately needs. So I think Sevyn, he's going to be a guy I think is probably going to start on the outside. I could see Converse and him being the guys on the outside. And you getting in a day one starter in the transfer portal, I think that's always a good sign.
Yeah, and he comes from a great pedigree, comes from a great school, had a high – I mean, this is about as solid as you're going to get. The issue is the injuries. But if he wasn't hurt, he'd likely be putting his name in the NFL draft. And that's just – he's going to have to get over that. There's no guarantee that he's going to return to the player that he once was. Remember, this is an injury that lingered back to the spring. Then he got back out there and got hurt again. So he's been hurt for a year. That's really the issue. But I'm with you. I think Jarrett Bernard Converse is going to be a starter on the outside. I think Banks is right there in the mix. I don't know that I would necessarily slot him ahead of Mekhi Gardner for sure right now because of the injury and Gardner being out there. Gardner's got the size, and we've heard them kind of rave about him a lot. But you've got to have more. And I don't know if I think Joe Fuchsia and then Brooks are probably looking at the nickel spot pretty closely. You're going to have one back there at safety. I think Jay Ward is going to start somewhere. So all of a sudden, now I start to look at this depth chart, and I think they've probably got 8 guys they think can play, and that's enough.
Oh, yeah, that's plenty. I think you want to be comfortable with 5 or 6 easily going into a game, but obviously we know injuries, guys need to come out. If you can have a little more depth of guys who you trust can go out there and play, because last year got to a point where you're getting walk-ons to go out there and play. I don't think they're going to be at that point this season with the amount of scholarship guys and obviously the amount of guys who have experience, and that's not even talking about the freshmen who, haven't even made it to campus yet. So you're going to have a lot more bodies than you've ever had, especially if you watch that Texas Bowl. It's a good spot to be. A lot of guys who got a lot of experience and a lot of guys who've played, at the college level at a high level. So it's a good position to be in for the secondary.
This is the 15th transfer that LSU has added in this cycle. That is the most in Division I college football. There are 2 spots available, and you have until May 1st to be eligible for next football season. So they've got what amounts to 12 days, 2 weeks to get the last 2 spots nailed down. My sincere thought is that they will add a tight end and they will add another offensive lineman. LSU is late on finishing the spring game. A lot of places are already done. It would not surprise me in the least if LSU had already had a lot of conversations. In fact, it would surprise me if they hadn't had conversations. But they got Sevyn Banks in for a visit over the last week and a half, and he was ready to roll when he announced today, and then the letter was already signed and sent in, and LSU was able to announce it officially. So the groundwork has been laid for these conversations over a period of time. I would imagine in the next 2 weeks we will see that LSU will, in fact, add 2 more players from the transfer portal, and I think tight end and offensive line is my guess.
Yeah, I think those are probably the 2 biggest positions of need as far as, where you could feel like you could use an extra body and use one right away. Obviously, we probably 3 tight ends on the roster that's going to be on scholarship.
Yeah.
You got to need more than that, especially in this offense where they want to run the ball and run some 2 tight end sets. So, and I think also getting a true center. I think that's probably one. If we did go offensive line, I would like a guy who's kind of played to the center position for more than a year and kind of let him try to challenge some of the guys who's kind of been filling in for center. So I would agree with you there, tight end and the offensive line for sure. Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.